the noise between your ears. It's 2:07 a.m. Sam's eyes are wide open, fixed on the ceiling fan. Not because it's broken or making some weird noise. It's just spinning, like their thoughts. You ever get that? Your body's begging for rest, but your mind's throwing a party no one asked for. That's where Sam is tonight. No music, no movement, just silence, except for the endless chatter inside their head. What if I messed up that project? Did I say something weird in that meeting? What if she never texts back? Did I turn the oven off? Am I wasting my life? One thought leads to another and another. It's like their brains running laps, but there's no finish line. Just the same sharp corners over and over again. Everyone has a version of this night. It doesn't always happen in the dark. Overthinking shows up while you're waiting in line at the pharmacy or trying to answer a simple, "How are you?" without giving away the chaos inside. It sneaks in during conversations, during commutes, during the shower. You start thinking about your thinking, then thinking about why you're thinking so much, then wondering if there's something wrong with you for not being able to stop thinking. And there it is. The trap. Sam's not new to this. They've read the books, watched the TED Talks, downloaded 3 meditation apps. One of them even had a sleep soundscape titled "Calm Your Racing Mind." Ironically, the guy's voice gave Sam more anxiety than peace. Nothing sticks. And tonight feels like one of those nights where nothing ever will. The world's loud, but the mind is louder. You know what's strange? We live in an age where noise is everywhere. News feeds, breaking news alerts, WhatsApp messages from people you haven't seen in 14 years. But somehow, the loudest, most relentless noise, it's the one between your ears. And overthinking's tricky. It pretends to be helpful. It says things like, "I'm just being careful. I'm trying to figure things out. I don't want to mess up." But it doesn't really solve anything. It just circles, spirals, repeats. It's like trying to dig yourself out of a hole with the same shovel that put you there. That's what Sam's realizing now, or at least starting to, because tonight, something different happens. Right in the middle of that mental storm, there's a pause. Not because of some miracle, not because of some cosmic intervention, just because they get tired. You ever feel so mentally exhausted your thoughts start tripping over themselves? Sam lets out a slow sigh, a small one. Not dramatic, just tired. And in that space, barely noticeable, comes the memory of someone, an old friend, someone who used to say strange things that made frustrating sense. "Your mind is like the sky," they once told Sam. "The thoughts, just weather." That voice, again, maybe it's not you, maybe it's just thinking. That friend was strange, but in the best way. A retired monk, believe it or not. Lived in a small flat above a bookstore that smelled like tea leaves and sandalwood. He had a face that looked like it had weathered both storms and sunsets. The kind of face that makes you listen even when you don't agree. He once told Sam 6 things, 6 teachings, he said, weren't answers, but tools. Not to shut off the mind, but to stop letting it run the show. Sam hadn't thought about those teachings in years, but now, here they were. Not like revelations, more like the scent of something comforting in another room. You don't see it, but it changes the air. If you're caught in a net, don't try to untangle every knot. That's one of the first things the old man said. Sam had come to him years ago, desperate, trying to find peace in a world that wouldn't stop buzzing. And the man said that, just that. If you're caught in a net, don't try to untangle every knot. Just loosen your grip. Back then, it sounded poetic, vague, kind of useless, honestly. But now, lying in bed at 2:19 a.m., Sam starts to get it. They've been trying to think their way out of thinking. Solve their mind like a puzzle. Fix every thought as if peace was just one more rational conclusion away. But maybe it isn't about solving. Maybe it's about softening. Maybe, just maybe, They've been gripping the rope so tight they didn't realize it was cutting into them. What if I told you thinking isn't the enemy? That's another thing the monk said once, while pouring tea with the kind of patience most people save for prayer. Thinking's not bad, he said. It's just not the master. Sam remembers arguing, but I can't stop. It never ends. To which the monk replied, do you tell your heart to stop beating because it keeps going? That one stuck. Maybe the issue isn't the presence of thought, but the belief that every thought needs a response, or worse, that every thought is true. Thought doesn't mean truth. You'd think that realization would have clicked earlier. We have bizarre dreams, and don't believe those. We have passing thoughts about jumping off balconies or quitting our jobs, and we don't act on those. So why do some thoughts feel like gospel? Sam's realizing something. Maybe overthinking isn't just thinking too much. Maybe it's believing the wrong things with too much certainty. Like that voice that says, you're not good enough. Or, if you don't fix this right now, everything will fall apart. It's not that the voice is always wrong. It's that the voice never shuts up. And when it gets loud, it drowns out everything else. Intuition, peace, clarity, humor. And in its place, panic dressed up as logic. Peace isn't the absence of thought, it's the space between them. That line came during one of those long walks. Sam used to walk with the monk through the edge of the park, early in the morning when the city was still half asleep. He'd say things like that with no warning, like he'd been thinking it for hours, or like it had just floated down from the clouds. Peace isn't the absence of thought, it's the space between them, and that's what Sam's starting to feel, a faint, almost imperceptible sense that peace isn't something you get once you finish thinking. It's something that's already here underneath the noise, like the stillness beneath waves, the beginning of an ending. By 2:37 a.m., Sam still isn't asleep, but something's shifted. They're not fighting the thoughts anymore, not trying to outthink them, not scolding themselves for overthinking again. They're just noticing. The voice is still there, but now it's more like a radio in another room, not a megaphone glued to their face. And in that space, something else shows up. Something they haven't felt in a while. Not clarity, not bliss, just breath. The slow rise and fall of breath. No soundtrack, no resolution, just the beginning of something quieter. And it all starts with a story, a memory, 6 teachings. They don't know it yet, but tonight marks the start of something different. Not perfect, not instant, but real. Part 2. Your mind is not the problem, it's the clinging. The morning light is sharp, not harsh, not angry, just honest. The kind of morning that doesn't let you hide. Sam's up before the alarm, groggy but not heavy. They sit on the edge of the bed, hair tangled, face creased from a pillow, still tracing the residue of last night's thoughts. And then, there it is again. That memory, the bookstore, the monk, the tea that always tasted like it had a secret. He had said something strange, frustrating even, during one of their early conversations. Your mind is not your enemy, it's just a tool, but you're using it like a cage. Sam had pushed back. So what? I'm just supposed to stop thinking. The monk had smiled, amused. Number, you're supposed to stop clinging. But I need to think my way out of this. Sound familiar? That inner itch to fix, to solve, to think until the knot unravels. Most people don't overthink because they're lazy or broken. They overthink because they care. Because something in them believes there's an answer. A perfect, clean solution. If they just think hard enough. Sam knew this all too well. But the monk had looked them in the eye, slow and clear. You don't need fewer thoughts. You need less gluing. That word stuck, gluing. He explained, you ever spill honey on your hands? That's what clinging is like. Thoughts are fine, but when you cling, they stick to everything. and now your mind's trying to solve a mess it created by holding on too tightly. It was the first time Sam had considered that thinking might not be the issue. It was the attachment to those thoughts, the ones that echoed like truth but were just mental weather. What does clinging actually look like? Let's bring it down to earth. Here's what clinging sounds like in real life. I need to fix this or else everything will fall apart. Why did I say that? I sounded so stupid everyone noticed. If I don't think this through 100 different ways, I'll make the wrong decision. Do you see it? The mind thinks, but clinging adds stickiness, drama, urgency. Clinging says, this matters more than anything else right now. Even when it doesn't. Even when you'll barely remember it in a week. Let go. That sounds passive. This was Sam's big resistance. Letting go sounds like giving up, they told the monk once while they were sorting used books for the local charity bin. It's not, the monk replied, sliding a worn-out copy of the Dhammapada into a cardboard box. Letting go doesn't mean stop caring, it means stop suffering unnecessarily. He paused. It's not giving up, it's giving space. Watch it without picking it up. That became a phrase Sam remembered like a mantra when a stressful thought popped up. Watch it without picking it up. When anxiety whispered worst-case scenarios, watch it without picking it up. This was mindfulness stripped of incense and Instagram quotes. It was noticing, not fixing, observing, not reacting, and gradually Sam began to sense a shift. Before, they'd jump on every thought like it was breaking news. Now, some thoughts just passed, like clouds. Did the thought stop? Of course not. But the glue? That started drying up. A quick real-life example. You ever have that moment at work? Maybe your manager says something vague like, we'll need to revisit this, and then leaves. And your mind, it runs. What did I mess up? Are they mad at me? Am I getting fired? That's not thinking, that's clinging. Now imagine hearing the same phrase, and instead of spiraling, you pause. You notice the thought, they're mad. Then, instead of feeding it, you breathe. You wait. You don't pick it up. Maybe later they clarify, oh, I meant we'll look at it again after the client feedback. End of story. See the difference? Same situation. Two entirely different experiences. On a bound in clinging, the other in presence. You can't stop the waves, but you can stop drowning. This is one of those lines that sounds like it belongs on a bumper sticker, but it's real. The monk used to say it as they sat on a wooden bench in the park, watching ducks fight over breadcrumbs. You can't stop the mind from generating thoughts, he'd say, but you can stop believing you are those thoughts. Sam would nod, sometimes understanding, sometimes pretending to understand, but slowly, through experience, not logic, it started to land. Stillness isn't always quiet. Let's clear something up. Stillness doesn't mean nothing's happening. It means you're not being dragged by everything that's happening. Stillness is what shows up when you stop adding fuel to every mental spark. It's what rises when you stop trying to narrate your life like an unpaid podcast host inside your head. And no, this doesn't mean you suddenly turn into a Zen master who's immune to stress. It just means you start noticing when the mind's being noisy and you don't instantly follow it. Some quick practices that helped Sam and might help you. No fluff, just things that actually worked. 1. Name the voice. Instead of saying, I'm anxious, Sam started saying, anxiety is visiting. It created distance. It helped them remember, not every voice is their voice. Second ground in the body. When overthinking hit, they'd ask, where's my breath right now? Not to control it, just to notice it, because the breath doesn't overthink. It just breathes. 3. Label the clinging thought. This one's subtle. If a thought felt sticky, like, what if I fail? They'd say, this is a fear of failure, not to analyze, just to see it as a pattern, not a prophecy. The thought isn't you, it's just passing through. Sam repeated that line 100 times the following week, in meetings, in traffic, in the frozen food aisle at Trader Joe's. Everywhere they felt pulled into spirals, they'd remind themselves, this thought isn't me, it's just visiting. Sometimes it helped, sometimes it didn't, but over time it changed the texture of their inner world. The thoughts still showed up, but they didn't stay for dinner. The first teaching remembered. So here's the first of the 6 Buddhist teachings the monk had shared, the one Sam now began to truly understand. Your mind is not the problem, it's the clinging, and that, right there, was the first crack of light in a long tunnel. Not a solution, but a different orientation. Not, how do I stop overthinking, but, what am I adding to these thoughts that makes them stick? And with that shift, the knot started to loosen. A thought to sit with. Next time your mind starts spinning, try this. Instead of asking, how do I fix this? Ask, what am I clinging to right now? You might find the answer is nothing more than a sticky story you don't have to believe. Part 3. Thoughts are like birds. Don't build them a nest. There's a little cafe downtown wedged between a used record store and a dentist who never seems to have patience. It's the kind of place that smells like ground espresso and regret. Sam loved it, or maybe they just liked how no one expected anything there. You could be alone without explaining it. They were sitting outside, drink in hand, watching a pigeon with a limp peck at a piece of croissant someone had dropped. The bird hopped, pecked, hopped again. That's when the monk's second teaching floated back, one that made almost no sense at the time. But now it felt like a koan uncoiling. Thoughts are like birds. They land and then they fly away, unless you build them a nest. Sam had blinked back then. That's poetic, but what does that actually mean? When you feed a thought, it grows legs. Let's unpack it. We've all had a random, mildly uncomfortable thought, right? Something like, I don't think they liked my idea in the meeting. Did I forget to lock the door? I sounded awkward just now. These are normal passing thoughts. They come, they go. But what happens when you start feeding them? When you grab onto that one idea and start decorating it with new fears? That's the nest. You don't just think, maybe they didn't like my idea. You start thinking, maybe they think I'm incompetent. What if I'm not cut out for this job? I always do this. I talk too much. And now, you've built a damn condo for that bird. You've given it furniture. You're feeding it 3 times a day. The thought isn't flying away anymore. It's moved in. Sam's moment of realization. Back at the cafe, Sam was watching that pigeon. Something about its one-footed dance mirrored how their thoughts operated. They remembered the monk telling them, with one of those half-smiles that felt both gentle and exasperated. You don't have to entertain every guest that knocks on the door. But how do I know which ones to ignore? Sam had asked. You don't, but you can watch which ones you invite to stay the night. And that, strangely, had been a relief. Not knowing wasn't failure, it was freedom. How nests get built. Here's a funny thing. Most people think overthinking is just too much thinking. But it's more than that. It's storytelling. You have a thought, then you add meaning to it. You construct a whole plot line, a trilogy. You start auditioning actors. Sam had done it 1,000 times. One awkward goodbye turned into, they hate me. I'm awkward. I'll die alone. Was it rational? Number. Was it human? Absolutely. The monk had said, thoughts are quick. It's your need to explain them that keeps them around. The so what technique. This one worked for Sam like a crowbar. Whenever they caught themselves mid-nest building, that moment where a thought was getting comfy, they'd pause and ask, so what? I think I embarrassed myself. So what? Maybe I said the wrong thing. So what? They might be judging me. So what? It wasn't meant to be dismissive. It was meant to cut the string between thought and identity. between emotion and apocalypse. Often the answer was, well, nothing really. And in that, nothing, peace. Real talk. This isn't about pretending, let's be clear. This isn't about ignoring reality or pretending your emotions don't matter or slapping some toxic positivity over genuine discomfort. It's about recognizing when you've started giving a passing thought a lease and utilities. The monk once told Sam while sweeping the dusty front of the temple, pain visits. Suffering unpacks a suitcase. You don't have to host your thoughts indefinitely. You can nod at them as they pass, like familiar strangers on the street. What's the alternative? Letting it be a cloud. You ever lie on your back and watch clouds? Some look like animals. Some drift so slowly you forget they're moving. Some block the sun and annoy you, but you don't yell at them to go away. You don't attach to one and say, this one represents my entire identity. You just watch. That's what the monk meant when he said, let the thought be a bird. It's not about suppressing. It's not about fixing. It's about letting it be what it is. Impermanent. No more, no less. 3 practices Sam used and still uses. 1. The 90-second rule. This comes from neuroscience. And yes, even monks quote neuroscience now. When a strong emotion hits, the chemical reaction in the body usually lasts about 90 seconds, unless you keep fueling it with thought. So Sam would tell themselves, just breathe. Just 90 seconds, let it pass. Often it did. 2. Labeling without judgment. This is simple but weirdly hard. When a thought appeared, they're judging me, for example, Sam would say, that's a fear thought. Not, I'm so anxious, or why am I like this? Just label it. Gently, like watching a wave rise and fall. It sounds small, but it stopped the spiral from deepening. 3. Physical disruption. Sometimes the nest was already half built before they noticed. When that happened, Sam learned to interrupt the pattern with the body. Walk cold water on the face. Change of room. Open a window. Thoughts need cooperation to grow. Interrupt the cycle, and they shrink. The monk's story, the man who raised a snake. Here's a parable the monk shared over miso soup one rainy evening. There was once a man who found a small snake near a river. It was weak, harmless. He took it home, fed it, gave it warmth. But as the snake grew, it became more aggressive. It bit him once, then again. Still, he kept it. He told himself, it's my responsibility. I can't abandon it now. One day, the snake coiled around his neck while he was sleeping. When he woke, he couldn't breathe. He tried to remove it, but it was too late. He had raised his own suffering, convinced it needed him. The monk sipped his soup slowly. Sam had stared at him. So, the monk said gently, what thoughts are you feeding just because they're familiar? Not every thought needs a reaction. One of the best things Sam learned, one that took months, maybe years, to actually feel in their bones, was this. You can have a thought and do nothing about it. You can notice, I think I failed. I think they're upset with me. I think I'm not good enough. And not act. You don't have to reply. You don't have to defend. You don't have to spiral. You can let it land and then fly away. The second teaching lived. So here it is, clear and simple. Thoughts are like birds. Don't build them a nest. That teaching, once abstract, had now become part of Sam's daily language. They still overthought sometimes. Of course they did. They were human. But now, when a thought tried to settle in, they'd smile and say, sometimes out loud, depending on who was watching, sorry, no vacancy. And that small shift, it was everything. A little reminder for you. Next time a thought lands, try this. Before you react, ask, do I need to build a nest for this? Or can I just let it pass? You might be surprised how many things don't need your full attention. Let the bird rest. Then let it go. Part 4. The voice in your head doesn't know everything. There's a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when a single thought pretends it's the truth, not a possibility, not a guess, the truth. And that's where the trouble starts. Sam's walk into the echo chamber. It had been a rough morning, one of those days where everything feels a little off, like your coffee tastes burnt, your shirt's just slightly too tight, and the silence in your inbox feels personal. Sam walked along the river trail, phone in their pocket, resisting the urge to check it for the 5th time in 2 minutes. A voice kept running in their head like a cheap radio stuck between stations. You messed it up. They're disappointed. You always make things worse. And that voice, it sounded exactly like them. That was the scary part. Your mind is a great storyteller, but a terrible fact checker. Let's call it what it is. Your mind is a master storyteller. It's brilliant at weaving narratives. Some of them are useful, like when it helps you imagine dinner before you cook it, or picture success before you try something hard. But give it a drop of uncertainty, it'll build an entire courtroom drama with you on trial. That voice, it doesn't whisper facts. It whispers familiar lines, stuff you've heard for years, stuff that once protected you, but now just holds you back. The monk's question, is that true? Sam had brought the Riverwalk spiral to the monk. They described the thoughts, the certainty of failure, the imagined disappointment in someone's text tone, and the monk, ever patient, ever irritatingly calm, asked just 3 words, is that true? Sam blinked. Well, it feels true. But is it true, or is it a voice you've mistaken for reality? And that cracked something open. The 3rd teaching, don't believe everything you think simple, right? But also wildly counterintuitive, because we tend to assume that just because a thought sounds like us, it must be us. It's like hearing your voice on a voicemail. You cringe a little because it doesn't quite match how you thought you sounded. Same thing with thoughts. Some come from fear, some from habit, some from people who hurt us long ago and whose voices we've internalized. But none of that makes them facts. Sam's shift from belief to curiosity. Here's what changed. Sam didn't try to shut off the voice. That never worked. They just started asking it questions. Is that actually true? Could there be another explanation? What if this isn't about me? It was like switching from being the defendant in a trial to the judge who sees the bigger picture, not emotionally detached, just wiser. Your inner critic has a script, and it's lazy. You ever notice how the voice in your head repeats the same stuff over and over? You're not good enough. You messed it up. They don't really like you. It's not creative. It's not even particularly smart. It just replays the same track, hoping you'll confuse familiarity with truth. The monk once said, your inner critic isn't insightful. It's persistent. Big difference. Okay, but what if it's sometimes right? Here's the thing. Sometimes that inner voice isn't wrong. Sometimes you did make a mistake. Sometimes someone is upset. But that doesn't mean you should treat every thought as gospel. Even when the voice has a point, it tends to overgeneralize. It'll say, you made a mistake. You're a failure. They're annoyed. Everyone hates you. You're not prepared. You'll crash and burn. See the leap? Even when the spark is real, the wildfire is often avoidable. 3 practices. Sam used to tame the voice 1, naming the narrator. Sam gave their inner critic a name, Casey. Why? Because it helped create space. So when the voice piped up, you're messing this up, they could say, ah, there's Casey again. Classic Casey move. It wasn't about mockery. It was about disidentification, about remembering that not every voice in your head is the real you. 2, the maybe practice. Whenever the voice claimed certainty, Sam added just 1 word. Maybe. They hate you. Maybe. You ruined it. Maybe. You're not enough. Maybe. It opened the door to other possibilities, and sometimes that door was enough to let the storm pass. 3. Reality testing with a friend. Sometimes thoughts get so loud you can't hear reason. So Sam started checking in with a trusted friend. They'd say, "Hey, my brain's saying X. Does that sound true to you?" More often than not, the answer was, "Nope, that's just your stress voice again." External reality checks are a gift. Use them. The monk's parable, the man who believed the mirror one evening, while sweeping fallen cherry blossoms from the path, the monk told a story. A man lived in a house with a warped mirror. Every time he looked into it, he saw himself distorted, smaller, meaner, misshapen. He believed this was how he truly looked. So he stopped going outside, stopped trying, stopped hoping. One day, a stranger entered and laughed. "That mirror lies," she said. "Come outside. The world has clearer reflections." The man hesitated, then stepped outside. The sky didn't laugh. The trees didn't mock him. The wind didn't care. And for the first time, he saw himself, not as the mirror told him, but as he was. The monk let that settle like dust on water, then simply said, "The mind is a funhouse. Don't live inside it forever." Sam's reframe: the voice isn't the villain. It's scared. This part surprised Sam. The voice they hated, the one that criticized, doubted, insulted. It wasn't trying to destroy them. It was trying to protect them from rejection, from embarrassment, from failure. But it was using old methods, outdated fears, half-remembered wounds. Sam learned to say, "Hey voice, I hear you, but I'm okay now. I don't need that protection anymore." And that compassion changed everything. When the voice gets loud, breathe, then question. If your head ever gets noisy, too many doubts, too many judgments, pause. Take a breath, then ask, whose voice is this? Is this helpful? What else might be true? You're not fighting the voice, you're just not giving it the steering wheel. So, what's the point? The voice in your head will talk. That's its job. But believing everything it says, that's optional. So when the thoughts come hard and fast, and they will, try this. Don't argue, just get curious. And when the voice shouts, "You're not enough," whisper back, "Maybe. But maybe I'm just scared." And that's okay too. Part 5. If you can watch a thought, you're not the thought. There's a strange kind of freedom that sneaks in quietly when you realize this. You are not your thoughts, not the anxious chatter, not the snarky inner critic, not even the brilliant ideas or philosophical musings. They're all clouds. You're the sky, the rain of thoughts, and the one who notices. Sam sat under the old fig tree behind the temple, watching clouds drift over the mountain ridges. Some were dark and heavy, like they might pour. Others were light and wispy, barely there. The monk, sensing Sam's gaze and knowing their tendency to think about thinking, said, "Thoughts are like clouds. Some bring storms, some just pass. But the sky never complains." Sam smiled, unsure whether they were being comforted or mildly roasted. The fourth teaching, awareness is bigger than the thought. Let's take a second. Have you ever been in the middle of an overthinking spiral, then suddenly noticed you were overthinking? That flicker of, whoa, I'm doing it again. That's awareness. That's the real you peeking out from behind the curtain. Because here's the key. If you can see a thought, you're not inside it. You've stepped back, gained perspective. That moment is gold, pure spiritual gold. The brain's job versus your role. Here's a simple but kind of life-altering idea. Your brain produces thoughts the way your lungs produce breath. It just does it. It's not personal, not moral, not always useful. Thoughts appear. That's what brains do. But believing, following, or wrestling with every thought, that's optional. That's your part of the deal. You don't have to jump into the river just because it flows past you. Sometimes you can just watch. The monk's story, the man and the wild horse. You might have heard this old Zen story. The monk told it like this. A farmer's horse ran away. His neighbor said, "Oh no, such bad luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day the horse returned, bringing with it 3 wild horses. "How wonderful," the neighbor said. "Maybe," said the farmer. Then the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses, fell, and broke his leg. "Oh no, so unlucky," the neighbor said. "Maybe," replied the farmer. A week later, soldiers came to draft young men for war. The son, with a broken leg, was spared. "What luck," said the neighbor. "Maybe," said the farmer. Sam heard this and just blinked. "So, you're saying don't get too attached to stories?" The monk smiled. "I'm saying don't grab every horse that runs by. Some are just passing." Sam's practice, becoming the observer. Sam started playing with a new habit. Every time a strong thought showed up, especially a loud or emotional one, they'd say to themselves, "A thought is arising." That's it. Not "I'm anxious," but "anxious thoughts are arising." Not "I'm a failure," but a self-critical thought is here. Subtle, maybe, but powerful. It created just enough space to keep from drowning. The 5-second pause that changed the game. Here's a practice that Sam said worked better than any productivity hack, journaling ritual or app timer. It's this. When you catch yourself lost in thought, pause for 5 seconds. And in those 5 seconds, notice your breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Listen to the sounds around you. Then say, "Thinking is happening." That's it. No need to change the thought or fix it or win against it. Just witness, like a mountain watches the clouds roll by. Real life example, the meeting spiral. Let's say you're in a Zoom meeting. Someone interrupts you. Your brain leaps into action. They don't respect you. You sound stupid. You always mess up in meetings. That familiar cascade. But now you catch it. You breathe. You think, a self-judging thought is here. You feel your fingers on the keyboard. You hear the hum of your fan. Just like that, the thought loses some of its grip. It doesn't vanish, but it softens. You don't have to fight it. You're watching now. Wait, doesn't that sound passive? Look, I get it. Observing your thoughts might sound like some wishy-washy, sit on a rock until you evaporate practice. But honestly, it's one of the most courageous, fierce, and radically freeing things you can do. Because most people, they're trapped inside the storm of their thoughts. Reacting, overreacting, drowning. Stepping back takes strength. It's not passive, it's powerful. What about positive thoughts? Should I watch those too? Yes and no. Here's the nuance. Positive thoughts are great, encouraging, hopeful, energizing. But if you start clinging to them too tightly, like, "I must feel confident all the time," then when a negative thought shows up, and it will, you'll panic. The trick? Don't grip, don't resist, just notice. Let good thoughts rise and pass. Let hard thoughts rise and pass. Let you stay still. Sam's reminder note. At one point, Sam stuck a sticky note on their bathroom mirror. It just said, "Watch the mind like you'd watch the sky. Don't try to fix the clouds." Some mornings, that note annoyed them. Other mornings, it saved them. The monk's analogy, mind as a movie screen. One night, the monk invited Sam to sit under the stars. He pointed up and said, "Your thoughts are like movies playing on a screen, bright, loud, dramatic, but the screen never changes. It doesn't get burned when the movie's on fire. It doesn't freeze when the movie shows snow. Be the screen, not the scenes." Sam lay back, watching the stars, and for once, their mind was quiet, not because there were no thoughts, but because they weren't believing everyone. Try this, a 2-minute thought-watching exercise. Feeling tangled in thoughts? Try this. 1. Sit down, breathe. 2. Close your eyes and imagine your mind as a river. 3. Watch thoughts float by like leaves on the water. 4. If you catch yourself grabbing a leaf, just smile and let it go. 5. Do this for 2 minutes, that's it. No enlightenment required, no special apps. Just you watching what already happens. Why this works, even when it feels like it doesn't. Here's the truth. Some days, you'll still get swept away. You'll yell at a thought, believe a story, worry yourself into knots. That's okay, because each time you remember to watch, even for a second, that's strength. That's training. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. Final thought, pun intended. Thoughts are like wind, sometimes gentle, sometimes brutal, always moving. But you're the one who feels the breeze, not the wind itself. So the next time your mind is loud, heavy, swirling with stories, pause, breathe, and whisper to yourself, this is a thought. I see it, but I am not it. And just like that, you return home. Part 6. The exit is through the body. You can't think your way out of overthinking. We try. Oh, how we try. We analyze, break things down, mentally rehearse every possible outcome like it's an Olympic sport. But sometimes the mind isn't asking for more thought. It's asking for something simpler, quieter, deeper. It's asking to come home to the body. The final teaching, the body is always in the present. Your thoughts can fly backward 30 years or launch forward into next Tuesday's disaster. But your body only lives in the now. It breathes now, it aches now, it stretches, trembles, warms, and softens now. This is where peace lives, not in a perfectly sorted out mind, but in the pulse of a present moment body. Sam's moment of realization. It happened on a walk, a totally ordinary, nothing special kind of walk. Sam had been overthinking all day, everything from their job to their worth as a human to whether they'd left the stove on. They hadn't. And then something shifted. A breeze brushed their skin. Birdsong slipped through the branches overhead. And they noticed, with an almost teary kind of relief, their body wasn't anxious. Only their thoughts were. The mind spins. The body grounds. It's almost ridiculous how simple this is. When you're lost in thought, caught in loops, spirals, mental noise, the quickest way out isn't always up or in. It's down and through, down into your feet, through your breath, into sensation, because your body's honest. It doesn't lie to please people. It doesn't worry about whether it should feel this or that. It just feels. And feeling is healing. Try this, the 3-minute comeback ritual. When you're tangled in mental knots, try this. Sam swears by it. 1. Sit or stand still. No phone, no screen, just stop. 2. Notice your breath. Feel the air move in and out. Don't control it, just feel it. 3. Find 3 body sensations. Heat in your hands, pressure in your back, tingling in your feet. Say out loud or silently, I'm here now. Even if it's messy, even if your mind is still yapping, just practice. Why movement matters, even the tiny kind. You don't have to do yoga on a mountaintop or run marathons to reconnect with your body. Sometimes it's as simple as rolling your shoulders, stretching your arms, drinking water slowly, standing up and walking to the window. These micro movements speak louder than your thoughts. They whisper, hey, you're alive. You're not trapped in your head. You're here. The monk's lesson. The bell and the bowl. The monk gave Sam a small metal bowl. He placed it in their hands and struck the rim with a wooden stick. It rang, clear and long. He said, your body is like this bowl. When struck with care, it resonates. Not with noise, but with presence. But if the bowl is ignored or filled with junk, the sound is dull. Sam nodded. Too often they'd filled their bowl with junk thoughts, never realizing the body was waiting to ring true. Let the body speak its language. Here's something we forget in all the hustle. The body speaks in sensation, not sentence. It says, I'm tired with heaviness. I'm scared with tightness. I feel safe with warmth. I'm overwhelmed with buzzing or shutdown. When you learn to listen, really listen, you stop needing to analyze everything. You just respond with kindness, with care. A tiny shift, changing the question. Instead of asking, "What should I think about this?" try asking, "Where do I feel this in my body?" It changes the game. It pulls you out of the loop, because a feeling can't lie its way out of truth. It just is. Sam's practice touched the earth. Inspired by an old Thich Nhat Hanh teaching, Sam started touching the ground every morning. Literally, they'd kneel down, press their hands to the floor and say, "This is the earth, I am here." It looked silly, but it worked. Something about grounding your body grounds your mind. Can we really trust the body? You might be thinking, "But my body's where I feel anxiety or panic or pain." Isn't that the problem? Not exactly. See, the body isn't the source of those things. It's just the instrument that plays them out. And if you're gentle, if you breathe with it, if you meet it with curiosity instead of control, it starts to soften. Over time, it even starts to feel like home. From thinking to feeling to being. There's a kind of shift that happens with practice. You go from thinking your way through life to feeling your way through it, to just being. It's not passive, it's not lazy, it's alive, present, rooted, and once you've tasted it, even for a moment, this is what you were overthinking about. That peace, that stillness, that clarity, it was here all along under the noise. Final reflections. Sam's full circle. Sam's journey wasn't a straight line. It zigged, it zagged, it looped back on itself. They still had days when thoughts took over, still caught themselves lost in judgment or worry or fantasy. But something was different now. They knew what to do when it happened. They didn't freak out or force themselves to stop thinking. They just noticed the thought, watched it come and go, returned to the breath, touched the body, said quietly, "I'm here now." And that, more than any trick or hack or mental gymnastics, was enough. Your turn. 6 reminders to stop overthinking. Let's bring it full circle. Here's a recap, not as information, but as daily practice. 1. The mind creates stories, but stories aren't always true. Catch the story. Question it gently. 2. You don't have to believe every thought. Thoughts aren't facts, they're suggestions. Some are helpful, some aren't. 3. Stillness is a choice, not a reward. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment to be still. You can stop now, right here. 4. If you can see a thought, you're bigger than it. Awareness is freedom. That gap between you and the thought, that's where peace lives. 5. The body grounds the mind breath. Feet, movement, feeling. These are the doorways out of overthinking. 6. Healing is a loop, not a line. You'll revisit the same thoughts, the same stories. That's not failure, that's the path. Last words. You've made it through a journey, not just across 6 teachings, but into the deeper layers of your own mind. Maybe you saw yourself in Sam. Maybe you found a new way to sit with your thoughts. Not fight them, not obey them, but simply be with them. And maybe, just maybe, something softened inside you. Remember, the sky is still there, even when it's cloudy. The ground is still beneath you, even when you forget to notice it. And peace is never gone. It's just waiting for you to come back. So take a breath, touch the earth, and whisper it to yourself one last time. I'm not my thoughts. I'm the one who sees them. You're free. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps us reach more people who need this wisdom. By liking, you show that you appreciate content that empowers and encourages personal growth. It only takes a second, and it really helps us grow.